Hi everybody, welcome to my homestead and welcome to my channel. My name is Jared. Okay, so if you've been with the channel for a while, you'll remember that I've said that this has been a loud year. Loud because we've had things like this happen at the very beginning of the year. Kind of one of the first big events that happened was there was an underwater volcano that exploded. And it turned out to be the largest explosion ever recorded with modern instruments. Okay, not saying that there hasn't been larger explosions, but with our instruments that we have now, largest one ever recorded. And this undersea volcano was just right off the coast of Tonga, and which is interesting of all places because Tonga, when you're looking at percentages of the population that are members of the church of all the different countries, Tonga has the highest percentage of members of the church. 63.5% of Tonga are members of the church. And right nearby is Samoa. They were also affected by this. They're number 2 with 42%. And then number 3 is American Samoa with 29.8%. Okay, this is on the church website on Church News. So that caught my attention. There's more to it, but just look up Tonga on my channel, and I've done a few videos about this. So this was, oh, and by the way, it was also the loudest. It was heard all the way from Tonga, all the way to Alaska, which is a long, long way. So it was big and it was loud. And then August 13th, we had this happen in, well, it affected several different metro areas. It affected the Salt Lake metro area. It was heard all the way from southern Idaho, all the way down to Provo. Provo, I think, is the furthest south that I've heard any reports of it being heard. So it covered the Ogden metro area, the Salt Lake metro area, the Provo metro area, and then parts of southern Idaho. Another literally loud event. Okay, this time in the sky. It was a meteor that exploded, and a lot of people experienced this. And here's some footage of it right here. Okay, so we have these two places this year that experienced these crazy, unprecedented explosions. I'm sure that there's been other meteors in Utah. My whole life living there, from the 80s until the early 2000s. No, sorry, the late 2000s, because we left there 2010. I had never experienced anything like this. I've never heard of anybody in Salt Lake having this kind of experience. So this, at the very least, was very rare that this happened. Remember also that the date matches up with when the angel Moroni dropped his trumpet. That happened on 3/18. This one happened on 8 1. Yeah, let's see, 3/18, and then this one happened on 8. Sorry. Yeah, 8/13. Okay, so 3/18, 8/13. Weird. One's a quiet event. The angel's putting down his trumpet, and then a couple years later, boom, a really large event as there's this big call up for missionaries. And the other one, the angel Moroni dropping his trumpet, 2 days later, missionaries were called home. So in my mind, they're connected. I don't see these as arbitrary, coincidental things. Okay, so Tonga, lots of members of the church affected. Meteor in Utah, lots of members of the church affected, and in fact, church headquarters affected. There's been some other things, but this is the latest, and it's not specifically having to do with the church, but it turns out that on the 9th of October, so just like, how long ago was that? Today is the 18th. That was like a week ago, a little over a week ago. The most powerful explosion that's ever been seen was recorded. Not on Earth, but in space. So the largest one that we know of, okay, that we have any record of, that we've witnessed, just happened a little over a week ago. Let me read you some of the details here. Okay. NASA has revealed it recently detected the most powerful explosion in the universe, so strong it could be felt on Earth. On Sunday, the 9th of October, 2022, which, by the way, that was exactly 1 week after General Conference, NASA's Fermi Gamma Ray Space Telescope, Neil Gehrels Swift Observatory, and WIND spacecraft picked up pulsations from an exceptional cosmic blast, quote unquote, which took place in the solar system. Not that the blast took place in the solar system, thank goodness, or else we would be obliterated. I think it's talking about this spacecraft and picking up the pulsations. Okay, so we felt the pulsations in our solar system. The gamma ray burst, or GRB, okay, that's what this phenomenon is called. The gamma ray burst, which is now being called GRB 221009A, is reported as being the most powerful of its kind ever detected. Gamma rays are a form of electromagnetic radiation, and gamma ray bursts are the most powerful class of explosions in the universe and rank among the most luminous events known, according to NASA. GRB 221009A occurred from the direction of the constellation Sagitta and traveled an estimated 1.9 billion years to reach Earth. It lasted for over 10 hours, and its signals could be felt all the way back on Earth because of how close it is to our planet. Quote, astronomers think it represents the birth cry of a new black hole, one that formed in the heat of a massive star collapsing under its own weight. In these circumstances, a nascent black hole drives powerful jets of particles traveling near the speed of light. So, yeah, so I'm assuming it was a supernova though, because my understanding is that a star will go supernova, explode, right, and then afterwards collapse. So I think, yeah, correct me if I'm wrong, but whatever the case, this seems to have been a star that collapsed, which is interesting symbolism. It's also interesting that they would use the term birth cry because we know that the second coming is sometimes compared to a birth. You don't know when it's going to happen, but you know that it's close. So it's just interesting how they worded it. But what's more interesting is that this represents the collapse of a star, right? Could this be a sign of a collapse of our world? Because we know that the worldly nations are going to collapse. That's the plan. Christ is going to assume power and control, and the nations are going to fall. And I'm going to show you some more interesting things in regards to this, so give me just a minute. Here's an actual picture of it right here. Okay. The explosion captivated astronomers globally due to its intense and striking bright light. Not just the most powerful, but also the brightest explosion of its kind to ever have been spotted from Earth. PhD student Jillian Rastinajad from Northwestern University in Illinois told the New Scientist, quote, if we look at all of the gamma ray bursts that have been detected, this one stands apart. Informally, we've been calling it the boat, the brightest of all time. It's another interesting term that you would choose because we know that the second coming it's an equivalent event. It goes hand in hand with the flood of Noah, and what saved Noah was the ark, right? So it's kind of interesting. Professor in astrophysics at Radboud University in the Netherlands, Andrew Levin, continued, quote, if you had gamma ray eyes, you'd be blinded. Thankfully, Earth wasn't harmed by the GRB, but if it had been any closer, it's reported the explosion could have caused some serious damage to the ozone layer and left the planet vulnerable to the sun's powerful ultraviolet rays. However, the GRM, I don't know where that comes from. I think maybe it's a typo. The GRB was close enough to give astrologers a more detailed look. Doctoral student at the Polytechnic University of Bari, Italy, or I guess Italy, Roberta Piera said, "This burst is much closer than typical GRBs, which is exciting because it allows us to detect many details that otherwise would be too faint to see. But it's also among the most energetic and luminous bursts ever seen, regardless of distance, making it doubly exciting." All right, so that's it for that. Now, so there are a few things that just kind of made me think about this. The fact that it happened 1 week after General Conference, it essentially this event was associated with the collapse of a star. They believe. There's a few more things. It came from the constellation of Sagitta or Sagitta. I don't know how it's pronounced. Here's like a little GIF showing you what it looked like. Of course, I think this would have been sped up probably because this took place over 10 hours. But anyway, it comes from the constellation of Sagitta. I'll just go with Sagitta. Sagitta, it turns out, okay, I looked it up. I wanted to see the mythology behind it, what the constellation represents. It says, it was regarded as the weapon that Hercules used to kill the eagle of Jove that perpetually gnawed Prometheus' liver. Now that's kind of interesting. I actually pulled it up here on Stellarium. Okay, so here's the zodiac right here: Aquarius, Capricorn, Sagittarius, so on and so forth. Above the zodiac, you have these other constellations, right? So you have Draco right there, Ursa Minor, Hercules. Okay, so we've recently talked about Lyra. Okay, you might recall I did a video. I've done a few videos now about ʻOumuamua. ʻOumuamua was a strange object. They don't know what it was that came into our solar system from outside the first time that we've ever observed that, and came through, slingshotted around the sun, and it actually accelerated as it left the solar system. There's different theories about it, but none are very good. And a Harvard scientist even thought that there's no doubt that it was some type of alien, either craft or a probe or something like that. I'm not kidding you. Someone from Harvard said that. We don't know what it was. It was very strange shape. It was kind of I don't know if it has a picture here. Yeah, right here. See this? This is an artist depiction. It's not the typical shape for an asteroid or, um, any sort of object that they thought it could have been. We looked at the name of ʻOumuamua just as a refresher. The name comes from Hawaiian ʻOumuamua, which is scout, from OU, reach out for, and mua, reduplicated for emphasis, first in advance of, and reflects the way the object is like a scout or messenger sent from the distant past to reach out to humanity. It roughly translates to first distant messenger. Now, there's more. I'll get into it, but I got an interesting comment from somebody. This is from Trenton Hanson, and he said, in regards to ʻOumuamua, based on the translation, ʻOumuamua could also be interpreted as Elias, which also means forerunner. Now, I don't think he's suggesting here that this is literally Elias, but whatever this thing is, if it's a special sign, if it's if it's connected to the sign of the Son of Man, not being the sign of the Son of Man, but like maybe a preparatory sign, a precursor, or however you want to think of it, that it may be filling the Elias kind of mission. So anyway, it could be interpreted as Elias, which also means forerunner. Quote, the spirit of Elias is first, Elijah second, and Messiah last. Elias is a forerunner to prepare the way. So, ʻOumuamua, we don't know what it was. If it was something, maybe it was in some kind of way preparing the way for the sign of the Son of Man. Don't know. And the spirit and power of Elijah is to come after, holding the keys of power, building the temple to the capstone, placing the seals of the Melchizedek priesthood upon the house of Israel, and making all things ready. Then Messiah comes to his temple, which is last of all. Okay. And then he continues. Also, it is interesting that in the print editions of the teachings of the prophet Joseph Smith, Joseph's prophecy is rendered thus, quote, the Son of Man shall come as the sign of the coming of the Son of Man. Note the difference in capitalizations, which, as I understand, were in the original. I've always believed that it was referring to a secondary Son of Man, i.e., a prophet who will herald the coming of the Lord in Elias. It just doesn't make sense to me otherwise. So, I mean, I don't know. That's a good thought. I guess we'll just have to wait and see, but I thought that this was a pretty interesting comment. So thank you, Trenton. Okay, going to Stellarium. So what they observed is that ʻOumuamua came from roughly right here, Lyra, which Lyra is usually associated with an eagle or a vulture right here. And then so that's the direction from which it came, and then it went around the sun, and then it went back out of the solar system in the direction of Pegasus. And I had noted that in this scripture in Matthew 24, there's an interesting thing. It says, for wheresoever the carcass is, there will the eagles be gathered together. And then it says, immediately after the tribulation of those days, shall the sun be darkened, and the moon shall not give her light, and the stars shall fall from heaven, and the powers of the heavens shall be shaken. And then shall appear the sign of the Son of Man in heaven. So, again, I do think that the sun being darkened, the moon, well, no. He talked about Joel's prophecy, not necessarily Matthew 24. I'm assuming that these are probably the same. I'm not sure. Okay, so I guess we'll just have to put that to the side. But anyway, I just thought it was interesting that ʻOumuamua came from an eagle, sometimes viewed as a vulture, and then you have this scripture that talks about, it uses this symbolism as it's talking about the gathering. Okay, this is the gathering of Israel, essentially, when you look at the footnotes and the context. Okay, so that's interesting. It came in 2017, which was the year before President Nelson became prophet. And when he became prophet, that was his big thing, the gathering. The gathering, right? Verse 28, the gathering. So, and then going, after coming from this area, Lyra and Aquila, it goes to Pegasus, which is a flying horse. And I don't think that Christ is literally going to come on a flying horse, but in the book of Revelation, it talks about him coming on a horse. So I just think that it's interesting that that's where it's headed. Now, this right here, this explosion, this GRB, okay, this happened in Sagitta, which is actually in the same vicinity. It's right here, Sagitta. It's an arrow. And what's an arrow? An arrow is a weapon. Let me go here. Under the Wikipedia page, it says, talking about Sagitta, it was regarded as the weapon that Hercules used to kill the eagle, Aquila, of Jove, which is another name for Jupiter, that perpetually gnawed Prometheus' liver. You remember that Prometheus, he was kind of... I've seen different thoughts about him, and sometimes he's referred to or compared to Lucifer. Lucifer means It's like the light bearer, right? And Prometheus was the one that went behind the gods' backs, and he got fire, which man was not supposed to have, and he brought it down and gave it to man. Kind of like the knowledge of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, like that type of thing. I'm not going to get too deep into that because I'm not sure that I fully understand all of it. There may or may not really be a connection. But the fact of the matter is that uh, the interesting thing here is that Hercules, he has been compared to Christ sometimes because Hercules was um, half mortal, half God, right? And he was heroic, and he did all these things, and so he's in a way he's kind of a Christ-like figure. And in with Sagitta, he uses Sagitta uh, to kill this eagle, right? So looking at the constellations again, you have that arrow, okay, right next to an eagle, and Hercules is actually close by here. If I zoom out, I'm pretty sure, yeah, right there. Here's Hercules right here, and there's the arrow, there's the eagle, okay. So this is where that star exploded or collapsed. It's right here in this constellation. It kind of made me think a little bit about Ezra's eagle. I'm not a big Ezra's eagle guy, but I think there could be something to it. I'm not sure. I'm still kind of thinking about it. It's not like a primary focus of mine, but I do keep it in the back of my mind. And what ends up happening with Ezra's eagle is that it seems like this eagle, according to the Ezra's eagle account, the eagle is the fourth beast, because when you look at the book of Daniel, okay, when you look at the book of Daniel, there are four beasts, and they correspond with King Nebuchadnezzar's dream, right? You know that King Nebuchadnezzar's dream, there's the head that's made of gold, and then there's the arms, and then there's the like the waist, thighs area, well, like the lower torso, and then you have the legs. The legs are the Roman Empire. So you have corresponding beasts that match up. So the eagle would match with the head. It's actually an eagle. Sorry, it's a lion with eagle's wings. Okay, and it matches up with the head of the statue. You have the second beast, which is a bear, which matches up with the chest and arms and upper torso. Um, that represents the Persian Median empires. Then you have the leopard, which represents the Macedonian Empire, which is Alexander the Great. And then the legs are matched up with this beast, but the fourth beast is not compared to an animal. It just describes that it says the fourth beast, dreadful and terrible, and strong exceedingly, and had great iron teeth. It devoured and brake in pieces and stamped the residue with the feet of it. So there's not a specific animal that's associated with the fourth beast. Okay, and this is the Roman Empire. Later in the book of Revelation, you find a single beast, which is actually made up of these four beasts. It's like you take all four of these beasts and you put them together, and that's what you have in the book of Revelation. And the harlot, the whore, is sitting on top, and then which seems to correspond with the little horn here. And I think from what I've read in the Institute manual, I think the best interpretation of that is the great and abominable church. So you have the kingdoms of the world, you have the horns, which are individual little kingdoms that come out of the Roman Empire, which match up with the 10 toes of the statue that are made of iron and clay. Some are iron, some are clay. So you have the 10 kingdoms that come out of the Roman Empire, and then you have the little horn, and then you have the woman the harlot standing on top of it, and that seems to be like the great and abominable church. And then so that's what you have, okay? But even in Revelation, it doesn't really have like imagery for this fourth beast right here, except for the horns. Um, so when you read Ezra, it's now this is an apocryphal book, but it basically says that that fourth beast is an eagle, right? So, and that's what the this metaphor parable is about. This vision, this dream. Actually, I think it's a dream. I'm just going to read some of it. This is toward the end, okay? I'm not going to read about like going feather by feather. I'm going to go kind of skip toward the end. It says, "And after I beheld, and lo, the head that was in the midst suddenly appeared no more, like as the wings, because it had three heads. And so the middle head was gone, just like how the wings, the feathers were gone, being plucked one by one. Um, but there remained the two heads, which also in like sort ruled upon the earth, and over those that dwelt therein. And I beheld, and lo, the head upon the right side devoured it that was upon the left side. Then I heard, I think that's supposed to be heard. Then I heard a voice which said unto me, Look before thee, and consider the thing that thou seest. And I beheld, and lo, as it were, a roaring lion chased out of the wood. And I saw that he sent out a man's voice unto the eagle, and said, Hear thou, I will talk with thee, and the highest shall say unto thee. So a lion comes out, not to be confused with the first beast in Daniel. Remember that was a lion that had wings, but this is not the same thing. This represents Christ, and it explains it later because the book of Second Esdras, it gives the interpretation of this. Okay, so the lion came out, spoke to the eagle. So in this context, the eagle would be, you know, the remnants of the fourth beast, essentially the remnants of um, the Roman Empire, right? Our modern day world right now, the power players in this modern day world. Hear thou, I will talk with thee, and the highest shall say unto thee, Art not thou it that remainest of the four beasts, whom I made to reign in my world, that the end of their times might come through them? And the fourth came and overcame all the beasts that were past, and had power over the world with great fearfulness, and over the whole compass of the earth with much wicked oppression. And so long time dwelt he upon the earth with deceit. For the earth hast thou not judged with truth, for thou hast afflicted the meek, thou hast hurt the peaceable, thou hast loved liars, and destroyed the dwellings of them that brought forth fruit, and hast cast down the walls of such as did thee no harm. Therefore is thy wrongful dealing come up unto the highest, and thy pride unto the mighty. The highest also hath looked upon the proud times, and behold, they are ended, and his abominations are fulfilled. And therefore appear no more, thou eagle, nor thy horrible wings, nor thy wicked feathers, nor thy malicious heads, nor thy hurtful claws, nor all thy vain body, that all the earth may be refreshed. Okay, second coming, the millennium, Christ is going to be king. That the earth may be refreshed and may return, being delivered from thy violence, that she may hope for the judgment and mercy of him that made her. Okay, and then going to chapter 12 of Second Esdras. And it came to pass, whilst the lion spake these words unto the eagle, I saw, and behold, the head that remained, and the four wings appeared no more. And the two went unto it, and set themselves up to reign, and their kingdom was small and full of uproar. And I saw, and behold, they appeared no more, and the whole body of the eagle was burnt, so the earth was in great fear. Then awaked I out of the trouble and trance of my mind, and from great fear, and said unto my spirit, and then he, asks for the interpretation. And it says, and he said unto me, this is the interpretation of the vision. The eagle whom thou sawest come up from the sea is the kingdom which was seen in the vision of thy brother Daniel. Okay. Remember, well, did it say that he came up out of the sea in Daniel? Or did Ezra, what, okay, it doesn't matter. I'll look into that later. But it was not expounded unto him. Therefore, now I declare it unto thee. Behold, the days will come that there shall rise up a kingdom upon the earth, and it shall be feared above all the kingdoms that were before it. And in the same 12 kings reign, one after another. Now remember, the fourth beast is the Roman Empire, and then it kind of extends to modern day, because basically the countries that are mostly in power right now are the remnants of the former, Roman Empire, mostly the West, United States, Canada, Western Europe, so that's basically the way that I see it. That's essentially the beast today, the remnants. Those are the 10 toes, the 10 horns, and so on and so forth. And then, the smaller horn being the great and abominable church and whatever. So, okay. In the same shall 12 kings reign, one after another, whereof the second will begin to reign and shall have more time than in any of the 12. And this do the 12 wings signify, which thou sawest. And when it says wings, I'm pretty sure, because there's different versions of this, different translations, and it's talking about feathers. Okay, 12 feathers. As for the voice which thou heardest speak, and that thou sawest not go out from the heads, but from the midst of the body thereof, this is the interpretation. That after the time of that kingdom there shall arise great strivings, and it shall stand in peril of failing. Nevertheless, it shall not fall, but shall be restored again to his beginning. And whereas thou sawest the 8 small under feathers sticking to her wings, this is the interpretation. That in him there shall arise 8 kings, whose time shall be but small, and their years swift. And 2 of them shall perish, the middle time approaching. 4 shall be kept until their end begin to approach. But 2 shall be kept unto the end. And whereas thou sawest 3 heads resting, this is the interpretation. In his last days saw the Most High raise up 3 kingdoms, and renew many things therein. And they shall have the dominion of the earth, and of those that dwell therein, with much oppression, above all those that were before them. Therefore are they called the heads of the eagle. For these are they that shall accomplish his wickedness, that shall finish his last end. And whereas thou sawest the great head appear no more, it signifieth that one of them, excuse me, that one of them shall die upon his bed, and yet with pain. For the 2 that remain shall be slain with the sword. For the sword of the one shall devour the other, but at the last he shall fall through the sword himself. And whereas thou sawest 2 feathers under the wings passing over the head that is on the right, it signifieth that these are they whom the highest hath kept unto their end. This is the small kingdom, and full of trouble, as thou sawest. And the lion whom thou sawest rising up out of the wood, and roaring, and speaking to the eagle, and rebuking her for her unrighteousness, with all the words which thou hast heard, this is the anointed. See, that the Messiah. This is the anointed, which the highest hath kept from them, or for them, and for their wickedness unto the end. He shall reprove them, and shall upbraid them with their cruelty. For he shall set them before him alive in judgment, and shall rebuke them and correct them. For the rest of my people shall he deliver with mercy, those that have been pressed upon my borders. He shall make them joyful unto the coming of the day of judgment. Wherefore I have spoken unto thee from the beginning. This is the dream that thou sawest, and these are the interpretations. So it's just interesting that you have this right here. Okay. Um, if this is true, okay, if second Esdras is true, we don't have it in our official canon, but if this vision actually happened and these are correct symbols, it's interesting that we learn that the fourth beast is the eagle, and it's very very appropriate. I'll show you why. We kind of already talked about it, but so we find out here that after the lion spoke to the eagle, uh, that the eagle appeared no more, and the whole body of the eagle was burnt, so that the earth was in great fear. Okay, and this is what's about to happen. The worldly kingdoms are going to be no more, and the earth is going to be burnt and cleansed, right? So you may think, well, I mean, what does that really have to do with this here? It may not have anything to do with it. I don't know. All I'm saying is that you have this constellation that represents an arrow, so a weapon of war or hunting, and the Romans looked at this constellation as the arrow that killed an eagle. It's also right next to this eagle right here. And this is where we saw the largest explosion of all time that we're aware of. It just happened just a couple weeks ago, right next to this eagle in the constellation of a arrow that's known for having killed an eagle, right? And then you couple that with second Esdras. Even if you don't take that into account, okay, if you don't take into account Hercules, if you don't take into account second Esdras, but you're just looking at constellations, you have an arrow next to an eagle, and this arrow explodes, or a star within this arrow explodes. Largest explosion of all time. And but let's look into the symbolism of nations. Okay, I've kind of already done this before on the channel, but let's do it again. So for the Roman Empire, all right, uh, their main symbol was actually this. It was a she-wolf. Okay, there's the story of Romulus and Remus, and the she-wolf was the one that helped them survive when they were babies. So that's the main symbol of Rome. But I think that one that's probably much more well known in modern times is the eagle. Okay. The eagle in Roman insignia. One of the most beloved and respected symbols of Rome in ancient times was the eagle, animal sacred to the god Jupiter, right? And we know that the myth. Um, Again, Hercules was the son of Jupiter, half man, half god, and he killed this eagle with Sagitta. All right. The eagle was the symbol of the legion, the core of the Roman military organization, and it was carried into battle as a powerful insignia. Now, remember, as you read Daniel, as you read the book of Revelation, and it talks about these beasts, it talks about how they persecute the saints and they cause a lot of suffering, and um, they're terrible, they're strong, they're vicious, right? So it actually might be appropriate to look at Rome primarily through its military power, which is symbolized by the eagle, right? So this was the beast that was around at the time of Christ, and it went on after that, and then kind of it broke up, but kind of survived in the kingdoms that came afterward, modern day. Europe, especially Western Europe. Okay, so in the eagle, a very important sign associated with the Roman Empire, especially the military. Okay, so it seems like that would be appropriate when we're reading that story in the second book of Esdras. Uh, there's something here that I did not know. I'm going to share this with you. This is from rivalnations.org. It seems to be like some kind of Christian website, but this is something that I didn't know. Maybe you did. Okay. It says during the time of Jesus, Roman emperors were chosen by eagles. Now, stay with me. Rome chose nearly all of its kings by observing the flight of birds. And by the way, uh, if you know Roman history, in the very very beginning, there were kings, but then there was kind of like um, a revolt, and then came the Republic, which later you had emperors, but they made a really important. They made sure that everyone knew, no, this is not a king, this is an emperor. It's not the same as the kings. Everyone, like after the time of the kings, they hated the kings. But they so anyway, I think this is referring to the early um, kings, and then it seems like later it carried on with the emperors as well. Anyway, that's just a side note. Rome chose nearly all its kings by observing the flight of birds, a form of divination known as augury. There were religious officials named augurs who observed natural signs, especially the behavior of birds, and interpreted these as an indication of divine approval or disapproval of a proposed action. The very first king of Rome, Romulus, was named to his royal post through this method. Augurs were trained to read avian signs and confirm who the gods had chosen to be the next emperor. Well, in that time, kings, later emperors. They watched to see upon whose shoulder a bird landed, and that man became the new emperor. Avian signs accompanied the selection and confirmation of all Roman rulers, from Octavian to Domitian, except one. Caesar Augustus at the time of Christ's birth to Caesar Tiberius at the time of Christ's death, the Caesar Nero at the time of Paul's execution, all of them were selected by eagles. Now look at this. The term augur is found in our English word inauguration. Isn't that interesting? It's like a carryover from Roman times. The term augur is found in our English word inauguration, which refers to the coronation of a king. Roman kings were literally inaugurated. We know that Caesars are not rightful leaders, though. Only Jesus is king. God was not the one selecting Roman kings with birds. Fascinatingly, though, God would end up inaugurating the true king with a bird, but not an eagle. Okay, and then it goes on to their thing. I'm assuming it's referring to the dove when Christ was baptized, but that's not like. Okay. So, okay, Rome and eagles and kings and militaries, right? I found this Wikipedia article, Eagle Heraldry, and it goes through just kind of like the history of the eagle being used for different national symbols, emblems, things like that. Talks about the Roman Empire. It talks about the Byzantine Empire, which was really the eastern half of the Roman Empire. Like after Rome was destroyed, the Byzantine Empire continued. It was anyway. So of course it would have an eagle too. Talks about we know that the United States, right? The United States. Um, I guess France. Let's see the French Imperial Eagle or Aigle de Pro flag eagle was a figure of an eagle on a staff carried into battle as a standard by the Grand Army of Napoleon during the Napoleonic Wars. There's something. Okay, so there's something I find kind of interesting. Okay, because I don't think that this is still around. I should have looked into that, but it looks like this may have only been used during that time. Okay, when France was trying to conquer the world essentially, and so they had the eagle, right? And then here's the United States again, so we still use this. You have Germany, they still have it on their flag. And we all know that famously, during World War II, that was also a big symbol of theirs, the eagle. It's interesting that the eagle is still used, or in modern times has still been used in times of war, imperialism, expansion, conquer, things like that, right? In Spain, I only know this because I served in Spain. Otherwise, I'm not sure if I would have known this. During World War II, Spain was not involved because they were just having and coming out of this civil war where you had the fascists against everybody else, and the fascists won, and then this was their flag at that time with the black eagle, right? Just like Germany, they had the black eagle. So that's interesting. And these are all these like Western countries, these Western superpowers, these Western countries that came out of the ashes of the Roman Empire, right? In the U.S. military, right? Because the eagle comes from the national uh, seal, the Great Seal of the United States. It's included with all the different branches of the U.S. military. You have the Army, you have the Navy. This one, the eagle has the anchor, right? The Marine Corps with the eagle, globe, and anchor, otherwise known as the EJ. What is it? Eagle, globe, anchor. EGA for short. EGA. You have the Air Force. They have their eagle right here. You have the Coast Guard, which it's not on their seal, but the Coast Guard has some flags. Here's the ensign that's flown on the ships, and then they have this flag right here, right? And it has the eagle. Um, the Space Force, however, I looked at this. Now the Space Force is brand new, only been around for a few years, and I haven't found any eagle imagery with the Space Force. The primary symbol for the Space Force is this shape, which my understanding is that this is called a vector. Um, the vector is a common symbol for other space operations, space programs throughout the world, not just the United States. Um, but yeah, no eagles. Although it's interesting that whatever this is, Deputy Chief of Space Operations for Personnel and Logistics, they have a harp. It looks like. I'm assuming this is a harp. I'll have to look into that some other time. That just stands out because we were just talking about uh, Lyra, which is that constellation is a harp, so that's kind of interesting. Anyway, but just like vector, 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 it's all just vectors for the Space Force. Um, now, in okay, so it says it right here with the Army, Marine Corps, Air Force, Space Force. You have the rank of colonel, and this rank it has an eagle as the rank. Generals are stars. Colonel is an eagle, and then you have other ones. I'm not going to go through all those, but this is a unique rank as far as like the um, symbol that's used for the rank colonel. Uh, I've talked about this as we were talking about President Oaks and the symbolism behind oak trees, and it turns out that oak trees have a very strong association, or they were, yeah, association with Rome and Roman rulers because oak is viewed as as strong and powerful, and so they would use that for emperors. Like they would have these kind of like wreath, crown type things. You know what I'm talking about. How they put like the oak leaves around their head like this. So when you see this and you think about this, that's what's happening here with U.S. military caps. Um, I think it's only flag officers that have. Wait, no, maybe no. I did this just a couple videos ago. I think it's both field grade and flag officers, meaning generals, and then majors, lieutenant colonels, and colonels that have these oak leaves on their service caps, which is a callback to this. Okay, so there's a lot of Roman symbolism and stuff that's carried on into the Western nations, into the United States, into the United States military. Okay, the eagle. So when we take all that together, and no matter which way you want to look at it, it's interesting that we have what I think is a sign in the heavens, the biggest explosion ever seen right here next to this eagle. And so I just wonder if this could be a sign that the worldly kingdoms, the fourth beast, the 10 toes, the 10 horns, if it's going to be coming to an end soon. Okay. And I think that it is. I really do. That's one of the final things that's going to happen, is that the worldly kingdoms are going to be overthrown. And the crown is going to go to Christ. He will be the king of the world. And just like, and it's going to be, pretty much I think how it's portrayed here in Second Esdras, that the lion's going to come and be like, well, your time's over. Go away. And then the eagle's going to burn. So, just such interesting things, such interesting things that have been going on. Just as a recap, ʻOumuamua coming from over here, Lyra and Aquila coming from here, coming down into our solar system. We read the scripture about the eagles, the vultures, right before the sign of the Son of Man. We have ʻOumuamua come from here, slingshot around the sun, then go up to Pegasus, the flying horse, which Christ will be coming on a flying horse. I don't think literally, but that's how it's portrayed in the book of Revelation. And now we have this big explosion. We've witnessed the two largest explosions this year. One here on Earth, the largest earthly explosion ever observed with modern instruments in January near Tonga. Okay, you could say it's the most LDS nation on the planet. And then right now, 1 week after General Conference, the biggest explosion ever recorded anywhere, right here next to the eagle, like basically at the eagle's head. In Second Esdras, it doesn't talk about the eagle being killed by an arrow or anything like that. It just goes away and then its body ignites and it's on fire. But I think that the imagery is still applicable with what we're seeing here. So, yeah, I think that's all I have to say about this one. However you want to look at it, whether you think that this interpretation could be wrong, I'm not saying that it's right. Even if you're just looking at just the fact, if you take the constellations away and you just look at the fact that we've seen the largest explosion ever, I think you can still take that as a sign in the heavens. Okay, that's going to be it for this one. So if you haven't already, please make sure to subscribe, like this video if you liked it, leave your thoughts and opinions down in the comments below. Also make sure to share it, and I'll talk to you guys later.